does he mention the Jew? Why does he mention the Jew? Ultimately, all problems, all scientific problems, including those in physics, can be reduced down to the Jew. How many is he saying it is? How many is he saying it is? Oh, it was at most 100,000. It was at most 100,000, and that was people that died of catarrh, and because it was wartime, and the only food they could get hold of was lobster, and lobster isn't kosher, and they wouldn't eat it. Oh my God, he's actually talking to a troon. I don't talk to troons. I would never talk to a troon in case they infect me in some way, but he's talking to a troon just because he's quite interested in what's going on in society. Oh no, oh my God, still on YouTube. How can someone, I don't trust anyone that's still on YouTube. Anyone that's still on YouTube is a shill and is also a fed. Is absolutely a fed. Let my sword of purity, my sword of purity, which I, as the anonymous purity signaler, will cut through everything. Hello, and welcome to the Jolly Heretic. Now, today I would like to talk about something that's come to my attention recently, which is the concept. Well, I've purity signaling.
Purity signaling, that's spannend.
Conservative bent about virtue signaling, and this is what people on the left do, and it's what people that want to get status do in a left-wing society. But what about the concept of purity signaling, which is a way of gaining status in a broadly conservative right-wing society? Why don't we discuss the dynamics of that? So that's what I intend to do. But before I do so, could you please subscribe? Could you subscribe here, and could you subscribe over on my Substack, jollyheretic.com, where I put all of the most interesting and spiciest content that I couldn't possibly put on YouTube, where if you like what I do, you can support what I do for as little as the cost of a pint of beer a month. Now, this, of course, makes me a shill. The fact that I don't particularly wish to give away all my labour for free makes me a shill. And the fact that I'm even allowed on YouTube at all, even if demonetised, this means I must surely be a fed. This is the kind of view that is expressed by the purity signaler. And the purity signaler is a problem among conservatives who are in a position of weakness in a left-wing society, because he makes those conservatives highly impractical, he makes those conservatives divided, he causes infighting, and he means that the right are less able to unite and stand up against.
Sehr interessant, was gerade sagt. Der Tugendhaftigkeitssignalisierer auf der Rechten macht es der Rechten insgesamt schwerer, einheitlich zu sein. Passt ja sehr gut zu dem eben, ne? Also deswegen ist nicht schon
das ist sozusagen der Schwamm, ne? Der Schwamm, der alles verwässert.
Jetzt muss er mir aber bloß noch die großen Teile der Rechten zeigen, die keine Tugendhaftsignalisierer sind, damit sie sich vereinigen können. Ja, genau. Die Ecke würde ich gerne mal kennenlernen, weißt du? Aber das ist eine andere Geschichte, das passt schon.
Aber ich finde den Einwand trotzdem gut, ja.
Nein, seine Argumente stichhaltig und absolut souverän. Da haben wir mal gar nicht drüber reden. Das Problem ist bloß, dem Argument fehlt die Basis, dem es folgen kann. Aber es ist eine andere Geschichte, passt alles gut.
The left. And they are already less able to unite by virtue of being mentally stable. Because people who are mentally stable are lower in narcissism, they are lower in Machiavellianism, they see the world as a fundamentally fair
das war Nicolo, das er nicht begeistert.
And because of this, they are less power hungry. And this means that it's people who are mentally unstable who are more likely to attain power. And as a lot of research has shown, people on the left are high in anxiety, and they are high in depression, and they are high in other negative feelings such as jealousy and unfair, and feeling that things are unfair, and so on. And this means that they don't like contemporary structures or historical structures or traditional structures, and they want to rip them down. And they are attracted to chaos, they are attracted to attacking all that is traditional, and they are attracted to leftism because in a broadly left-wing society, if you are narcissistic and you think that you deserve better and think that you're important and cope with your negative feelings by telling yourself that you're special, then you get narcissistic supply from being left-wing because people tell you you're good. And if you're Machiavellian, then in a broad left-wing society, a way to become powerful and to control the chaos and fear by which you are surrounded is to virtue signal about how left-wing you are. Now, if we look at the psychology of this means of attaining power, it is very much the psychology of the female, on average, as opposed to the psychology of the male. And Joyce Benenson has looked at this in her very interesting book, Warriors and Warriors. Men are physically stronger, they're bigger, and therefore they're perfectly happy to have a fair fight. And so the way that you attain status is by having a fair fight. And if you already have some status, then you will have the confidence that you will win a fair fight. And so that is how you will attain status. You will just go for it. You will simply go for it in a fair fight. This is not what left-wing people do. Left-wing people in that sense are more like females. They are physically weaker than right-wing men. They are shorter than right-wing men. They will feel negative feelings by which they might be overwhelmed more than right-wing men. And so they fear a fair fight. But yet they have a fundamental desire for power and status. And so but yet they are of low status. So how do they get it? They get it by playing for status covertly, by a virtue signalling, via saying that they are really in favour of equality, more so than the last man, or really in favour of a harm.
Grandiose, selbstlose Narz. Dann raus.
Wir verweisen auf Vincents letztes Video. Danke.
Avoidance, more so than the last man. And the result of that is eventually you get to a point where you're so in favour of harm avoidance that you daren't tell people who are deluded, who think they're something they're not, that they are not that thing. And it becomes socially unacceptable to do that. Now, what you get in a right-wing society, and what definitely happened in Victorian England, was the opposite of this, which was runaway purity. And again, these are the three moral foundations. We have 5 moral foundations. We have the group-oriented foundations of obedience to authority, of in-group loyalty, and of sanctity versus disgust, i.e. purity. And this is often a way of keeping harmful pathogens and whatever out of the group by being sceptical of foreigners or whatever. And you have the individually oriented foundations of equality and harm avoidance. Nevertheless, there is a degree to which equality and harm avoidance cross over with sanctity. And the reason for this is that in a right-wing society, in a highly religious society like Victorian England, where you have runaway disgust, basically, and response to disgust in the form of purity because of the prevalence of lots of diseases becoming endemic at the same time, then just as it is females that tend to virtue signal in a left-wing society and go on and on about how virtuous and kind and concerned with the
Mein Rock war viel zu kurz, sage ich nur. Also er will es gleich noch sagen, was heute halt die Linken sind, waren früher die Anstandsdamen in der Kirche letztendlich. Das Virtue Signaling ist die weibliche Strategie, die geht auch von rechts zu spielen, von der Heiligen her.
Ja, die Karens halt, ja.
Ja, heute, die sind ja links eher. Aber ich meine früher, die Karens früher, ja genau, so praktisch, ja.
Ja, die Karens sind immer die gleichen geblieben.
Ja,
sie haben halt bloß die Messer neu gewetzt, verstehst du? Einmal links, einmal rechts, je nachdem.
Und das ist ja das Ding so. Feminismus korreliert ja mit Wohlstand. So, und das ist ja das Brutale. Ne? Und sage ich mal, das Gynokrat ist halt dann natürlich links, ja, weil Feminismus links ist. Und deswegen vorhin auch von mir so kurz der Struggle mit der politischen Selbstdefinition, weil ich es halt schon als rechts bezeichne und weil es ja auch konsequent logisch rechts ist, weil Patriarchat ja das Gegenstück zum Feminismus ist. Und von daher ist es ja genuin sozusagen rechts, aber jetzt rechts mit dem, wie wir es heute sehen, da muss man schon wieder so sagen, ja, da musst du fast eine eigene Strömung aufmachen. Ja?
Er hat ja die Säulen genannt, ne? Die Obedience to Authority war noch Richtig. Die andere Säule und das In-Group Loyalty, die hatte ich ja schon vorher angesprochen. Und bei Autorität wäre wahrscheinlich Red Pill eben nicht so sehr auf Autorität aus, sondern eher individualistisch, kommt natürlich drauf an. Gut.
Genau. Und deswegen war das nur kurzer Gedanke so, also wir sind ja natürlich alle an Wohlstand interessiert so und dementsprechend müssen wir damit leben, dass der Feminismus erstarkt. Ja? Und deswegen ist, sage ich mal, der organische Umbruch Richtung rechts ist halt einfach der Zerfall des Wohlstands. Ne?
Ja.
Das ist halt einfach heftig, ja. Genau.
Schauen wir mal noch.
Quality they are. In a right-wing society, it was the church ladies. Now, what were the church ladies? The church ladies were purity signalers. They were women of low status, often spinsters, and that was the ultimate low status thing, to be a woman that other men don't want, to be a spinster that can't get a high-quality husband, or indeed any husband. And so therefore they signal their purity by going on and on about what good virgins they are and condemning any deviance from the sexual ethics of the time among other women, until you get to a point where it is these women that are spearheading the idea that, I don't know, a secretary that gets pregnant by her boss should have to put the child up for adoption with strangers, which is inherently maladaptive to be brought up by strangers, but that by genetic strangers. But that's what we get. That's what we get with purity signaling. And you will of course notice that in conservative circles, people who have low status within the circle, or people that are quite neurotic and therefore will go under false names and fear being outed and this sort of thing. Those kinds of people will engage in purity signaling rather than virtue.
Haben wir die gerade an dem Tisch gesehen in dem Beitrag davor? Leute, die ihren Namen nicht nennen und signalisieren, um Status zu generieren. Ach je.
They will indeed, the obvious example is you'll see on Twitter, they'll put things like pure blood. The very word pure. Pure blood, and this evidences, of course, the fact that they rejected the vaccine. Now, I'm not saying the vaccines were necessarily, anything other than a load of old, but it's a high level of disgust which would make you oppose having indeed any kind of vaccine. But you're wanting to purity signal. You're wanting to tell other people, oh, look how pure I am, pure blood. Now, what's the difference between that and writing anti-racist? It's nothing. It's hollow signaling.
Das Hollow Signaling, da fällt mir natürlich direkt die Heilige ein, klar, aber auf der Frauenseite, weil die Frauen besonders auf dieser Säule aktiv sind. Das fand ich die interessante Botschaft eigentlich von diesen 5 Säulen. Die 2 halt Harm Avoidance, also Schadensvermeidung und Egalität, toxische Egalität heute und dem Leitmotiv. Ist das Purity, die Purheit, der Erhalt praktisch der Kultur kann sich praktisch komplett drehen anhand der weiblichen Achse. So, das fand ich eigentlich spannend. Kannst auch und Heilige drüberlegen. Egal. Ja. Auf jeden Fall ganz, ganz interessante Gedanken, die er immer hat. So, dann gehen wir mal durch. Ja?
Wie gesagt, ich sehe halt da schon eine einfache Lösung, aber das Problem ist, dann schreien wieder alle auf, weil das funktioniert nur in diesem Teufelskreislauf, weil die Frauen nie zur Verantwortung gezogen werden.
Richtig.
Da gibt es eine ganz einfache Lösung. Da kommt aber wieder der innere Postkartenmaler in mir durch.
Ja, interessant, ne? Also wie das quasi wie so eine Wippe funktioniert.
Ja, genau.
Sozusagen bei dem Überschwung also wenn der Wohlstand sozusagen das Ausmaß erreicht ist, dann ist die Selbstdefinition der Frau selbst die
Ja, genau.
Aber wenn sie unter sozusagen underperformt der Wohlstand, dann ist sie selbst die Heilige.
Weil sie dann nicht einen Versorger brauchen, genau den spricht sie an.
Genau,
das ist es.
Richtig.
Das ist halt.
Absolut.
Und deswegen ist die weibliche Strategie ein Chamäleon, weißt du, das ist wurscht. Ja, ist egal welche Nische, weil die bringt sozusagen mehr Cash in der Hypergamie auf der Seite dann, weißt du? Das ist das
Ding.
Und
dadurch, dass sie nicht Verantwortung für ihr Tun übernehmen müssen, in der Hinsicht, kann es ihnen auch egal sein. Also jetzt im Großen und Ganzen. Weil wenn aber eine Macht da wäre, so eine göttliche, unsichtbare Macht, der Spaghetti-Monster, der wo ihn immer auf den Hintern draufhaut, wenn der Wohlstand da ist und sie gerade feministisch unterwegs sind, dann würden sie schnell lernen, dass es Sinn hat, den Wohlstand zu erhalten. Aber egal.
Ja, genau.
Das rede ich.
Aber es ist immer wieder, diese Wippe, die du beschreibst, ist ja immer wieder auch dieses, das siehst du auch immer wieder an der Sexualmoral. Also es ist von total puritanisch, viktorianisches Zeitalter war angesprochen, Knöchel kannst du sehen, hin zu 4K, Gangbang, weißt du, scheißegal.
Ja, das hatten wir auch schon mit dem Wahlverhalten gehabt, dass Frauen nicht mal das Wahlverhalten der Eltern übernehmen, Männer wiederum schon, Frauen tun das eben nicht. Also selbst wenn du eine Vorgabe der Gesellschaft hast, ja, machen sie halt nur so lange, wie sie beschämt werden können. Ansonsten eben eigentlich nicht. Also es ist nicht so, dass wenn eine Frau etwas erlernt hat, über Generationen, es bleibt einfach nicht sitzen. Es muss immer wieder neu und neu und neu, sagen wir mal, beschämt werden.
Der Opportunismus, die Maske bleibt halt, ne, das ist klar. Vor allen Dingen, was war ja auch schön zu sehen bei diesem Gender Ideology Gap, könnte man vielleicht noch sagen, dass Männer lange linker waren als Frauen, so bis in die 80er rein. Und irgendwann kommt dieser Punkt, genau dieser Kipppunkt der Wippe, Und dann merkt sie, aha, ich komme mit meiner Taktik durch und dann geht der Balken steil nach oben. Ja? Und dann hast du diesen Gender Ideology Gap, den wir heute haben. Ne? Es geht auf einmal ratzefatz.
Wodurch kommt sie denn damit durch? Eben, also, sie versucht es, das grenzdurchbrechende
Ja,
Verhalten.
natürlich.
Und die Sims, die Männer, die machen auf einmal mit. Vielleicht nicht direkt wie so ein schöner Wasserfall, sondern eher so ein bisschen wie Magma. Aber es passiert trotzdem. Erst durch die Männer können sie die Grenze durchbrechen.
Mhm. Ja, genau, natürlich. Die müssen ja die Männer bearbeiten, die Zivilisation vorantreiben, könnte man jetzt sagen, oder den Betaisierungsprozess, den Prozess. Und irgendwann gibt es halt so eine kritische Grenze. Deswegen sind Männer dann auch eher linker, weil sie wollen ja eigentlich mehr als die Frau, würde ich mal sagen. Ja? Und irgendwann merkt sie, aha, ich kann auf der Seite überholen, links überholen sozusagen, zack. und dann sind wir 2024. Ja.
Ja, dann hörst du eigentlich noch den Sound neben dieses.
Und dann kommt die Degeneration, dann kommt halt, wie ich es meinte, dieser Kulturkreislauf immer wieder, wo dann, wenn das die polygamer die Gesellschaft wird, beschleunigt sich sozusagen der Untergang eigentlich nur noch. Ja. Das ist erstaunlich, wie sich immer wieder.
Ja, du hast halt sozusagen immer das, also sage ich mal, die Grundlage ist immer den Mann sozusagen vorzuschicken, ja, in den Wald, ja, und solange er halt verreckt oder halt schwer beschadet zurückkehrt, okay, dann halten wir die Beine still, aber sobald, also sozusagen dann, ey Leute, ja cool, ihr könnt jetzt alle kommen, ne, alles ist cool sozusagen, es gibt nichts mehr zu verlieren, ja, und dann wird dann halt sozusagen losgestürmt, ne, und dann ist das so, also ich meine damit so, dass der Mann in der Verantwortung ist, sowieso immer in diese Pandoras Box reinzugreifen, und wird ja heutzutage noch dafür beschämt, dass er es machen muss, weil er es als Erster gemacht wurde. Deswegen hat er als Erster alle kulturellen Felder erschlossen, jede Arbeit etc., dies, das. Ne? Und dann dafür wird er heute geschämt. Aber auf der anderen Seite ist es dann natürlich auch so, da haben sie immer eigentlich, ja, deswegen sage ich ja immer, der Mann ist der Enabler, er kann sich halt nur entscheiden, fürs Patriarchat zu enablen oder halt fürs Matriarchat. Ne?
Richtig. Und dann besser fürs Patriarchat.
Entweder
und solange
sich oder anderen.
Genau. Und solange er, sage ich mal, verwundet zurückkommt oder irgendwie, also solange man dann da in dem Kontext noch eine Gefahr vorherrscht, dann ist, sage ich mal, das Patriarchat gesichert. Ja? Aber wenn es dann sozusagen alles umsonst und alles für alle gibt, dann heißt es nur noch so, ja, ihr wart ja zuerst da und ihr habt die Frauen ausgebeutet, wir mussten so lange warten.
Du wird auf dem Opferticket der Schuld so tief reingeschoben, bis wir alles machen dürfen und die Unterverantwortlichkeit realisiert ist. Ja.
Es gibt da eine steile Theorie von wegen, wie kann man die Menschheit einen, ne? Man kann zum Beispiel ein Volk einen wegen äußerer Aggressor. Jetzt nehmen wir mal an, es kommt irgendeine Alienrasse und die will die Menschheit vernichten. Wer würde da aufstehen und sagen, nein, eigentlich die Männer, weil die Frauen würden wahrscheinlich sagen, oh mein Gott, schlimme Aliens, wir machen die Beine breit.
Ja, genau.
Ja oder nein? Wenn nein, wir fragen die Männer, beschützt uns, wenn die Aliens uns aber dann...
Es ist immer wieder das gleiche Drecksspiel, weißt du?
Ja.
Das ist... egal. Jetzt kommt Pearl Davis und haut nochmal richtig rein. Heute haben wir nur Sahnestücken mit hier der guten Treadcuck Lauren Chan, die eigentlich ziemlich dämlich ist, ich sag's mal, die dumme Sau. Und hier in unserem Enabler hier, dem Tim Pool. Aber Pearl hat auf jeden Fall einen guten Auftritt, fand ich.
Dem erklärt er White Knight mit dem Schulddildo-Komplex im Hirn, ja.
Video wants a lot more, I guess, rational. So sometimes I feel like I'm struggling to see like what your actual views are versus maybe what gets the most traction on X. So I'm excited for this to have a conversation about it. But I guess the role of women in society is, to be mothers, to be wives, to support their families. How exactly that looks is going to differ from people to people. That's one of the reasons why I don't necessarily associate with the trad movement. I feel like trad refers to specifically almost the glamorization and in some ways fetishization of maybe like rural 1850s middle America, at least on like what I see on TikTok. Whereas, I'm just a mom who works part-time from home and is basically trying to do whatever I can to help support my family.
Well, I would say there's character limits on X. So, you're not going to get a full opinion with, like, I don't know, is it 60 characters? But I don't know, what tweets are you talking about? And I have, like, 18,000, so I don't know.
Well, we actually, like, I wanted to be specific here because I did pull some of the ones up. I sent them to you. I didn't want to, like, ambush you or surprise you or anything like that. Let's see.
And the role of women in society, sorry, I was thinking what the second question was. Well, I think it depends, like, what do we want it to be or what is it now?
Right.
And I think right now it's like, we're not really doing much. We're not really having kids. We're not really contributing to the economy when you look at output. So it's like, what do we want it to be or what is it? Because I wouldn't say women are doing what you described now.
Okay, well, one of the things that, like, I spoke recently actually with Rachel's husband, Andrew, and one of the tweets that I mentioned that I thought was kind of strange coming from you was that basically you said evil comes from women.
Evil comes
Andrew,
from
in his
women.
interpretation, he made it very rational, very nuanced. Actually, this is what she means. Is it not true that there is a lower moral bar for women, blah, blah, blah. And it, like, Andrew's smart guy. It made a lot of sense. That's not what the tweet was. And kind of funnily enough, you tweeted out later to clarify, Lauren, that yes, evil does come from women.
Yeah, well, because I would just look at every problem in society. It all comes from women.
To be fair, I just realized this the other day, but did you know that Hitler was made by a woman? That proves it.
Well, it's like you look at
Made
the
and
homeless,
elected.
Most of them
Yep,
come from
made
single mother
and
homes. You look
elected.
at school shooters. Most of them come from single mother homes. You look at criminals, rapists.
Ist
most
ja
of
gut
them
im
come from
Auswendig
single
lernen.
mother homes. You look at what happens when women get power. So when men get power, they build societies, they do awesome things. When women get power,
Ich vermisse immer noch ihren
I
Ehemann
just
und
love
ihre
Hitler.
4 Kinder.
I mean, I kind of feel like there's a lot of bad dudes, you know?
Well, yeah, but there's also bad queens, right? If you look at queens the last 500 years,
Ja,
women
wie
are more
Tim
like
Pohl, die kleine Mützenratte, immer wieder versucht, irgendwie zu halten. Das ist aber ekelhaft. Von der Seite. Halt doch einfach die Klappe.
to wage war.
Er
We're
muss auch
very
immer im
adamant
Mittelpunkt
that
stehen.
people need to take responsibility for their own actions. So when it relates to women, it's not really an excuse to say, oh, well, feminism brainwashed me. You still made the decision to sleep around. You still made the decision to get an abortion.
I think if you get an abortion, you're responsible.
Okay.
Right?
Shouldn't we have that same standard when it comes to the rapists, the men? You made a decision, you're responsible. It's not really like, oh, but my single mother. Like many people have.
And they are responsible. They go to jail for it. But you have to look at, there's significant differences between single mother and single father homes. And I can't help but notice that all of the men that seem to lack morals, they were raised by a woman.
Right,
Wie
but
kommt das?
is the answer then that evil
Knick,
comes
knack,
from
da
women?
musst
We're
du's
kind of
überleben.
leaving out the fact that, yeah, a man actually left the parent,
Nee, wir
where
müssen die
his
Kurve
family.
kriegen.
in that
Ja, ja.
situation. There are some situations where a woman doesn't want the man there,
most
but
of the time men don't leave. Women are the ones that overwhelmingly leave. And if you really dig it, if you actually do the work and interview men that are the known to be like deadbeat dads, most of the deadbeat dads don't really exist. They're exceptions. They're not the rule.
So-
and if you actually do the work and interview these guys, there's men that have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars fighting for their kids.
Oh, yeah.
And unfortunately, we're in a society where women can claim abuse. You know, they can say he emotionally abused me and not see his kid for years.
What's real quick, what's the stat? I know that there's stats on women initiating divorce more, but how do we say that, fatherlessness is predominantly driven by women? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, because women are choosing to leave, and the number one reason is irreconcilable differences.
But that's when you're
but you-
talking about single mothers who are a result of divorce. If we're looking at single mothers who were never actually married, it's a very different group of people.
But the whole point is women have all the power here. We have a
Unglaublich.
million choice. You get to choose whether or not you get pregnant. Abortion's legal. So we are 100% in control of who's born. So there is zero excuse to make a kid with a guy that's not going to stick around. Zero excuse. None.
I would
got
also say
zero.
there's zero excuse for a guy to not stick around.
Well, but the issue you're getting is
Like, because you're basically saying,
Du
but what about the
dumme
women,
Sau.
though? We're not
I'm
talking
saying,
about the man
but the
leaving.
difference is men cannot opt out of fatherhood. Women can opt out of motherhood.
And I think we would
So-
both agree that you should not be able to opt out of motherhood.
But
right?
we can, and it's
And that
not. It's
shouldn't
not
be like
my
that.
point. But should whatever.
Well-
Like abortion's legal. It's here to stay. Unfortunately, I don't say this because I'm happy about it, but I mean, in the UK, they're introducing a law where they want to make it legal up to birth. So abortion is legal, and right now, men are not able to opt out of fatherhood. Only women are.
Only socially, physically. Women in the United States overwhelmingly have the right to abort.
Correct.
Or are allowed to abort. Men don't have any say whatsoever. But socially, I looked it up it says, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, 20.2% of fathers, about 7 million, are absent dads. They don't live with their minor children. So
Right, but why?
Right. So this stat doesn't literally mean that 20% of fathers are like getting up and saying, later, kid, I'm going to buy scratchers,
Yeah.
and then disappearing. But my point was just that of this, you have
Oh,
men
bist
who
du
are like,
geistig behindert,
okay, you're having a kid,
Tim Pool.
I'm leaving, you'll never see me again.
Well, but you don't understand the circumstances, because a lot of times women make men dads that don't want to be. They're like, this is something casual. This is, situationships are really common. They know that man will never commit to them, and yet they still make the choice to have his kid. I think in those situations, if we can legally opt out of motherhood, they should be able to legally opt out of fatherhood. We have all the power now. Don't make a kid with someone that doesn't want to be a father.
I see. You're saying
I think that applies equally to, and this is why I don't advocate for promiscuity. Don't sleep with someone that you are not prepared to have a
shouldn't be
child with.
But
What's happening?
Is what you're
That's like, this isn't a dream world. This isn't like make a wish, society promiscuity is going to go. It's not.
But-
so I'm talking about what's happening. Go ahead.
Are you saying that a woman who sleeps, like, let's say a woman, we'll start light. She sleeps with a guy, gets pregnant, and then realizes this guy will leave her and doesn't want to be a dad. You're
Yeah.
saying she should get an abortion?
I'm not saying should or shouldn't. I'm saying women have the choice to, right now. Men do not have the choice to opt out of fatherhood. Should or shouldn't, it's almost like, okay, I mean, this is where I get frustrated with conservatives. It doesn't matter what I say. Women are going to abort their kids. It's not going to become illegal. So if we're in a society where we can legally not be mothers, if we don't want, why can't men legally not be
No,
fathers?
I get that.
Yeah.
But the question I'm thinking of is,
Wie du am
you're
besten die
putting a
Kurve
lot on
kriegst.
women as those who are responsible for single parent, like single mothers. And what I'm trying to understand is, you're saying because women can choose not to be a mother.
Yeah.
You said something to this effect. And the guy can't. That means the woman has decided to have a child knowing the man will not be there.
At times, yes. At times.
So I guess my concern then is, like, let's say there's a woman who deeply loves a man.
At times. Da muss der glatt mal dieses dumme Stück Scheiße. Aber er muss doch glatt mal unsere letzten Stats einstreuen. Was war das? Unter Singles, Frauen in Deutschland wollen 50% oder was ein Kind ohne einen Vater großziehen. Ja, so war der Wunsch schon implizit vorher. Ich meine, gut, es war eine Studie. Aber, hallo?
Okay.
And she says, let's get married. And he says, yes. And then they do. And then she says, oh, hey, when I got
irgendwie.
pregnant,
Seid ihr
he
noch
goes,
da?
no way, I'm not doing this. I never wanted to have kids. I'm filing for a divorce immediately.
Oh, fuck. Seid ihr wieder da?
Ja, wieso?
Das hing gerade bei mir mindestens Minuten lang. Ich wollte schon rebooten.
Mir lief's durch.
Okay, lief durch, ja. Aber was hat sie noch gesagt gerade hier? Weil ich war gerade abwesend. Irgendwie, wie hat sie ihn gekontert, den Tim Pool? Nur für die Zuschauer, die jetzt gerade geschockt waren und nichts mitbekommen haben, weil bei mir gerade was war.
Ja, sie lässt ihn halt nicht davonkommen, dass der Mann mehr Verantwortung haben soll, weil die Weiber halt 100% Kontrolle über alles haben und sie halt für ihre Entscheidung gerade stehen müssen. Weil wenn ein Mann eine Frau heiraten will, dann will er in der Regel auch Kinder von ihr haben.
Ja.
Also das Argument, was die Dumpfbratze Shen und unser Bini-Zwerg anbringen, ist halt absolut nicht haltbar.
Ja, ist es ja auch nicht. Frauen 70% der Scheidungen und ich sage immer noch viel mehr, weil der Mann irgendwann, weil sie ihn halt nicht tot nervt, bis er sich scheiden lässt. Ne? Also, nun. Auf jeden Fall in Amerika, gut. In Deutschland müsste man es nochmal ein bisschen separieren.
Getting people pregnant.
Right, but
So that is very, very possible without abandoning the child. And that's the thing. Like, the child does not have the ability to opt out of needing basic care, comforts, and things like that.
And that's true, but
Wird das
my
Kind
point
wieder
is, having unprotected
Alles
sex,
um
that's
die
an equally
Unterverantwortlichkeit der Frau zu
irresponsible
schützen. Das ist
decision. We
immer
can agree,
unglaublich.
right?
Yes,
Right?
yes.
So, but my point is, after that happens, the woman has the Plan B option. She's the only one that can guarantee she took the Plan B, right? Then she had the option before also to be on birth control or not be on birth control. Many women lie about that. And she has the option to get an abortion. Now we're going close up to birth. as long as we have those extra options, I think men should have the option to not be fathers. Do you think that's unreasonable?
Yeah, I do, and I've listened to you talk about child support and child custody, and I agree with you that if a man is being kept from his child, it is simultaneously unfair to say you have to pay for him, but you're not allowed to visit him. I don't think that's right.
Okay.
I think you're getting the worst of both worlds there. And I do agree that custody should be 50-50 off the bat. Like that should be the presumption. You shouldn't lose rights to your child just because you and the mother are divorced. But I don't think
50-50 wäre ja noch nett. Ich bin für Patriarchat an der Stelle, aber gut.
And essentially opt out of a life that you created. And when it comes to abortion, I don't think, similar with women, that you should be able to opt out of the life that you created. So what we
but
have
it doesn't
now,
matter what you think, it
now,
matters what's happening.
right?
That's
So
the point.
now what's happening is immorality when it comes to abortion. But I don't think the way to fix that is to also extend immorality to child support. Like this is a life you've created. You've both created. You both have responsibility to it.
Whose morals?
What do you mean?
Because
whose
it
morals?
just turns into a morality police, and that's like always with these conversations.
About abortion?
Correct. Well, no. I'm talking about sex outside of marriage, that sort of thing. But let's not play pretend. 3% of people are waiting till they're married. That's not really common. I mean, was anyone here virgin on their wedding night? Anyone? No? Okay. So why do we play pretend?
Sie hat's gemacht, ja. Hier, sie hat gleich mal Bodycount reingehauen. So sieht's aus.
All right, so it's like...
Well, I think this gets to the heart of it. We can sit here all day and talk about what we think ought be or not ought be, but the problem is that you're not going to fix any of this without patriarchy. When we threw patriarchy out the window, we sexually liberated women. What we did was throw off a balance of power that was already there. Women historically have been, the gatekeepers of sex. Every one of us sitting at this table has twice as many female ancestors as we do male ancestors. So genetically, women had this great advantage. Then we have our youth, our fertile years, where we have tremendous sway, tremendous influence and power. And I think that's temporary on purpose. What happens when you give women equal political power and equal social power to men, and you remove the father as the head of the household, which all patriarchy means is rule by the father. When you throw that out, this is the mess you end up with that's impossible to fix.
Ja, Patriarchy, Dankeschön. Nochmal von dieser Seite.